A federal judge has issued a partial gag order on former President Donald Trump in his election interference case. Trump is now restricted from making, posting, or sharing statements about special counsel Jack Smith, the court staff, and potential witnesses. However, he is allowed to discuss Washington, D.C. and the jury pool, criticisms of the Biden administration, and making statements that he believes the case is politically motivated. Congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now with more on this decision. And what's interesting, Scott, is the judge says that the former president doesn't have the right to say and do exactly what he pleases. Help explain the ruling.
Because he's a criminal defendant, Errol, the judge says he doesn't have unlimited First Amendment rights. And it really is the foundation of what was a big decision from this judge, and to a degree, a big early victory for the special counsel in this landmark 2020 election conspiracy case against the former president. Let me actually mention the second reason this is a victory first. The judge says the March 4th, 2024 trial date is going to remain in place. No delays, no waiting until after the campaign or the election. The defense tried to make that argument today. But then in issuing this statement that First Amendment protections yield when it impacts the administration of justice or the safety and well-being of witnesses, she hands down this partial gag order, which is almost exactly what the prosecutors were seeking. Trump cannot target or repost statements about the special counsel himself or his family, about the court and the court staff, or about potential witnesses in this case, and mentioning a few by name: General Mark Milley, Brad Raffensperger, Secretary of State in Georgia, Mike Pence, Bill Barr. These limitations were brought about because the prosecutors argued that what Trump's been saying as recently as last night not only threatens witnesses, it threatens to contaminate the jury pool, and it may be a chilling effect, Errol, on future witnesses to come forward who don't want to be the subject or the target of Trump posts.
And there's always been a question as to how much, Donald Trump restricts or edits himself when he tweets, when he posts to Truth Social. This goes all the way back to his presidency. And certainly when he delivers these speeches in front of a friendly crowd, he tends to go anywhere. How then will these specific restrictions, which allow for most of his speech, but not when it relates to the case, how will that be enforced?
And the judge says there will be sanctions if she finds Trump has violated this newly implemented gag order. She didn't specify what those sanctions can be, but we know in court today the prosecutors referenced a whole range of possible sanctions, including potential financial sanctions. And the judge said earlier in this case, if there are violations of these pretrial restrictions, potentially on this gag order, she may be inclined to expedite the trial to avoid tainting the jury pool. She didn't mention the very provocative notion of ordering pretrial detention for a U.S. president, nor has she ruled that out. She left quite broad what is going to happen. She says there'll just be sanctions, and she said that and then gavelled the hearing closed.
And you also mentioned that former Vice President Mike Pence is a part of this ruling. Explain what the president now is restricted and allowed to discuss as it relates to his former VP.
Absolutely. There are three areas in which Trump is going to be limited with his targeting speech: special counsel, Jack Smith and family, the court and court staff, and the third one is potential witnesses. But the judge even acknowledged there may be some carve out or some more latitude allowed if the former president's going to criticize Mike Pence, because Mike Pence is very much running against Donald Trump right now in a Republican primary. The prosecutors, in making this ask, emphasized a couple things. That Donald Trump has already shown an ability to calibrate or hold back some of what he says. And they said that the September 17th episode of Meet the Press, in which Trump was interviewed and held back answering some questions, are indications that he knows he can hit the brakes when you need to when it comes time to criticizing others. But the prosecutors also mentioned, Errol, that what they're seeking to limit here, and what the judge has issued a gag order to limit, is such a small percentage of what Donald Trump can say on the campaign stump. He can still criticize the Biden administration. He can still say he's the best choice for high office. They're just trying to keep him from chilling witnesses, threatening witnesses, and saying phrases about the special counsel they deem does both. And the judge, Errol, really emphasized her concerns with one word in particular. When Trump calls Jack Smith a thug, the judge even said in so many words, if any other criminal defendant used that phrase targeting an official in his case, he or she would likely be sanctioned. And she has tried to argue, Errol, she is going to treat Donald Trump like every other criminal defendant.
And how is the former president responding to this? I would imagine there's a lot of all caps words being used.
Yeah, and the all caps was referenced in court today. The judge says some of these phrases in all caps have special resonance. As recently as last night, Trump continued his criticisms of the judge, calling her a Trump hater and an Obama appointee, trying to argue that the Obama appointee has some resonance in this case. And he's also been critical still of Jack Smith, not just calling him a thug, but deranged. The question now is, Errol, what can Donald Trump say after this moment? What will he say after this moment, potentially to test or incidentally testing these new rules? If he runs afoul of this gag order, Errol, seems certain the special counsel will file a motion in court and they'll have it out in court.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Scott MacFarlane joining us from Capitol Hill. Thank you.
Thank you.